SpatialXL is one of the mapping products in our Spatial BI product suite. It is a mapping add-in to Microsoft Excel and allows users to display and analyze spatial data within the familiar Excel environment. Other products in our suite include LocateXL for geocoding, RouteXL for optimized routing, and Spatial Publisher for distributing and sharing maps. For this demonstration, I'll be using some store data with coordinates and attribute data, as well as various shapefile and background map layers. We will start by looking at how we can add data and navigate within SpatialXL. Before we add any data, we can look at some of the background maps that are available. We can firstly provide a set of background maps for any country for working offline. I'm going to click on my Show Floating button to expand my view, and then I can use any of the map navigation tools to zoom down to Street View. And as I zoom in, various background map layers will display. At Street View, I can switch off my background maps and tick on my Google Roads background, which will provide me with a different background layer. And often when you zoom down to Street View on Google Maps, they have a lot of additional data that will display, such as building footprints and points of interest. You can access the Google Maps button from the spatial ribbon, and you can also change the view to Bing Maps to display satellite imagery as a background layer, and this can also be accessed from the shortcut ribbon. To dock the view, I can simply close the spatial pane so it sits next to my spreadsheet, and I can click the Bookmarks button to access any preset spatial views. We can now take a look at how to add an Excel spreadsheet layer to our map. To add an Excel layer to my map, I will need two columns in my spreadsheet with latitude and longitude coordinate data and any attribute data. For example, here I have a list of around 5,000 stores with information on location, store type, and sales volume. To add this to my map, I simply click on the Add Excel Layer button. And in the layer properties box that appears, I can make any layer changes, such as the color or size of my points, or I can simply click OK and come back to make any changes here at a later stage. Once I click OK, this will add the layer to my map, and I can simply double click the name of the layer and change it to match the name of my spreadsheet. Each row in my spreadsheet is now represented by a point on my map. There is a direct link between both, so any filters or selections that I do will update on both the map and my spreadsheet. For example, we could do a filter on our province column, and we could filter out all of the stores within the Western Cape only. And you'll see your map will update to display these records. We can see them here in the Western Cape, and we also have a record that is well outside the boundary that we can query. We can switch on our province boundary layers just to make sure that these all do fall within our Western Cape boundary. And then if we want to check the location and details for this particular record, we can zoom in, and we can use our inspector tool in the shortcut ribbon to select and query this particular record. So in the inspector box, this will be populated with information on this record from the spreadsheet. So it is supposed to be sitting in the Western Cape in Cape Town. And if we want to highlight this record in our spreadsheet, we can click on the Select in Excel button, and we'll see all the information here. So in this case, the coordinates for this particular record are incorrect, and if we input the correct coordinates for this record, it will automatically update and move to the correct location on the map. I could now do a second filter on my data. For example, we could filter the sales volume column and do a number filter to display all the stores with the top 10% sales volume as an example. And this will again update my map to only display these stores for me. I could zoom down to Street View, and at this level I could switch on my labels, which will display the names of each store next to my records. And again, I could use the inspector tool if there were any records that I wanted to query. We're now going to take a look at map themes, which I've created in a previous layer. So I'm just going to right click and remove the layer that we have just created. To clear any filters, I can simply click my Data Clear Filter tab and I can zoom back out. I can create map themes for any data category columns that I have in my spreadsheet. So for example, columns such as retail group, sales volume, or columns such as district or province would all be good columns to create map themes from. Before I switch on my themes, I'm just going to float my map and zoom to my layer. And I'm going to add a legend to my map as well by clicking on the settings icon and then just making sure that I switch my legend and scale bar on here. Alright, to view any themes that I've already created, I can right click on my stores layer, go to theme, and for example I can change the theme to see stores by province, and I'll now see each of my provinces color coded. And I can switch these layers off within the legend. And if I switch on my provinces layer, I can have a look at the themes that I've created here. And for example, I can also color my province boundaries at the same time. Right, and then to view any other themes I've created, for example, let's look at sales volume, which is a size theme. I can see here my lower volumes in green, right up to my higher volumes in red, and I can again switch those on and off to see just my higher volumes or lower volumes. I've also created a theme on retail group, which I'm going to zoom in for. This shows the different retail groups with logos or images that you can also use, and sometimes this looks much better when we zoom right down to a street view, and there you can see all the different logos and icons for each of my retail groups. And then finally, I've created a store density heat map. So if we zoom out, this then aggregates or clusters our point data into hotspots so we can see high densities or high volumes by store. You can create your own themes on any data you have in your spreadsheet layer by going into the layer properties and then creating your themes from within the thematics tab here. We're now going to take a look at some of the tools that are available in SpatialXL. The most commonly used spatial tools can be accessed from the SpatialXL shortcut ribbon. This ribbon contains tools from the various spatial pane menus, and this ribbon can be customized to bring in any of the tools from these menus and add or remove to your spatial shortcut ribbon. Some of the tools in the shortcut menu are the inspector tool, which we demonstrated earlier, the measure tool, which if I zoom in on my map, I can use to measure distances or areas by clicking on single or multiple locations, and my distances will update in the measure box here. I can also use the copy coordinates tool, which allows you to copy coordinates for any location on your map and then paste those into, for example, a spreadsheet, or you can even overwrite some of your existing data. You can also make use of the various map selection tools, which would allow you to select multiple points on your map and highlight these back in your spreadsheet. As an example, I'll use the Add Intersecting Circle or Radius Map Selection tool, and I'll draw a radius of around 5,000 meters or 5 kilometers from a point on my map. And this will select all the stores that fall within that 5-kilometer radius, as well as give me a count of the number of stores in my spatial shortcut ribbon. To select these stores in my spreadsheet, I can click on the Select in Excel button, and I can choose to color the background and select these stores in my spreadsheet. This will enable me to then do a filter in my spreadsheet, so I could filter by color to only see the 100 or so stores that I've selected. In SpatialXL, you can work on the fly, which means that I could now insert a column here, and actually mark these stores off. I would just make sure to update my layer extent to include my new column. And then if I clear my filter and zoom out on my map, I can come back to these stores at any time and my map will automatically update. We can now clear our filter and we can clear any selections from the map by clicking on the Clear Select button. We will now take a look at how you can work with shapefile layers in SpatialXL. You can add any shapefile or other layer types to SpatialXL by clicking on the Open Folder button in your ribbon. And you'll see if we look at layer types here, you're able to add a number of different layer types such as shapefiles, map info formats, Google Maps, AutoCAD, and so on. I have already added 2 shapefiles to my map. The provinces layer, which if we tick that on, we can see the province boundaries for South Africa. And if we right click the provinces layer, we can select any themes that have already been set up, such as the province name. Or we can select the store count by province, which I created using the SpatialXL aggregate tool to give us a count of the number of stores by province, which I've then color coded and labeled on my map. If we switch on the municipality shapefile, we can have a look at some of the themes here. And the municipalities have some census data such as total population. So if we switch that on, we can see a theme showing us the total population by municipality. And if we zoom in on the maps, we'll see the names of the municipalities come up as well. To view attribute data for any shapefile layers, I can right click on a layer and select View Data. This will open up my layer data grid, which contains all the attribute data for my shapefile. For local municipalities, we have some demographic and census data for each district. I can click at the bottom of my grid to get, for example, a count of the number of features in my shapefile. And I could also, for example, click and get a sum of the total population for all my municipalities. You can filter in the layer data grid. So for example, we could filter out only the municipalities in the Western Cape. And this will update my map to display only the municipalities in my filter. It will also update my grid to show me how many municipalities I have, as well as the total population in this province. I can also search for a particular municipality by typing in the name. So for example, as I type here, looking for City of Cape Town, it will actually filter out and isolate that for me on my map as well. You can also pivot in your layer grid. So for example, if I drag and drop provinces here, I can now get a sum of the total population by province. And I could also change this, for example, to be a percentage. We can create themes on any attribute data that we have in our layer grid. So for example, if we go back to our theme menu, we can display our data by predominant language group, which will update the theme on the map. Or we could display it by, for example, predominant LSM group. And we can tick on and off within the theme. So if we only wanted to see our LSM groups 4 to 5, we could switch all the others off. And we could also do a count, as we did for provinces, where we display the number of stores by municipality, which when we zoom in, we can actually see the number of stores displayed on the map. We will now take a look at how we can copy or export maps from SpatialXL. I can choose to export or copy any map from SpatialXL by clicking on the File menu. And for example, I can export as a PNG file, which will then save to my machine, and I can open it from here. I can also copy out my map. So for example, I can copy as image, and I can paste this into Word or PowerPoint or any program that's required. If you purchase our Spatial Publisher add-in, you can also export and distribute your maps as Spatial Reader or viewing files. Thank you for watching our video demonstration. Please contact us for any further information.